Hey everybody, I thought I'd just load up a live stream for Friday night here in Bangkok and haven't really been doing much this week. I don't know, I just felt kind of tired and not the most energetic this week, but I've also been doing a lot of planning and trying to prepare for my next steps, um, doing research on accommodation, and I'm starting to lean more toward the 90 days in Vietnam. Um, it just seems like there's a lot more to see there than maybe I initially anticipated, and I'm starting to dig in more into some of what is on offer there. And yeah, it seems to be like there's a lot more going on there than I would have thought. I mean, I know it takes more effort to get the visa there, which can be a detractor for some people looking for just like an easy visa option. But you know, that being said, it seems like it's developing really fast. That's it's going to have a really dynamic and exciting feeling. I'm going to try to do more of these live streams too, just because I think a lot of people really enjoy them, and I'm able to get through a lot more stuff on these live streams as well, because they can serve as kind of a Q&A for the audience. That there's certain interests that they have or certain topics that they want to cover, and we can discuss those more easily in this format. Um, but yeah, feel free to chime in. I know it's Friday night here in Southeast Asia, Friday morning. Oh, excuse me. Friday morning in the United States, Canada. What's everybody up to this weekend? Uh, Not at the moment. If I get a job offer, THEC11335 asks, "Are you still planning to move to California?" If I get the right job offer, I would go back just to stack that money. But currently, no offers. I've had a couple of interviews for companies based in California, but they haven't moved forward on those. And yeah, so I'm sticking it out over here until something materializes back there. I'm not really in a rush to go back. I mean, the ideal, would be going back to make more money and load up on some cryptocurrency and also some dividend stocks, growth stocks, that kind of thing. But if I don't get that opportunity, the only reason for me to be in America is to make money. Other than making money and catching up with friends, I don't like living in America at all. I don't like the culture. I don't like the stress. I don't like the nasty attitudes. And some of those issues are really pronounced in California. In California, it's such a fast-paced place, and people are stressed out about bills and making money, and they put their financial goals or their status goals above all else. Uh, I think California was probably paradise like maybe 60 years ago, 70 years ago, maybe even 40 or 50 years ago. But now it's just, it's just an awful. I mean, it's like I said, it's good for the money because you can live semi cheap. And, I saved about 70% of my income in California, but it's a terrible quality of life. You're living around sketch balls. Like everybody in California is either very poor or very wealthy, not much in between. And you see that when you go out and I remember coming out of a Michelin restaurant in San Francisco, and there were like homeless people partying in the base of the stairwell. This was in Japantown, San Francisco. And I'll go ahead and pull that up because that's a decent starting point here. Maps, and we can just go ahead and load that up. Yeah, so I was at this restaurant in San Francisco, really, really nice place, fantastic. And I think they have Michelin stars. It's up there in terms of quality either way. Um, I think the meal was around $300. I used a bunch of credit card points I saved up, and I paid around $80. Um, but as soon as I come out of here, this is for my birthday last year, or no, 2 years ago. This was for my birthday 2 years ago, and yeah, so like I come out of here, and like right around here, there's like several homeless people just hanging out and partying. Um, and Yeah, it was just let me know, Hoshia, if it goes away, or if it remains a black screen. But yeah, it was just a stark contrast. I mean, you see that all over San Francisco, and it's not a good feeling. So, um, have you ever thought about visiting Vermont or Maine? I've heard some of the problems that plague the rest of the states aren't prevalent there. That I never visited that region. No, I never have. I think part of it, the challenge with Vermont and Maine, is a few things. One, the small population means that there's a really high tax burden. So if you live in Vermont or Maine, you're going to pay you've got a large tax burden. And that's because the population being small, they've got to maintain a lot of stuff based on the output of that small group of people. They're also some of the oldest states in the country. You've got tons of retired people up there. Um, and they also there also tends to not be a lot of job opportunity up there. I think a lot of the deindustrialization hit those cities hard and really benefited cities like Boston and New York City, because the economy in America has swapped really since NAFTA passed, from a manufacturing economy over to a financial economy. So there's all these financial service businesses that have popped up. Part of that was through deregulation of the credit industry by Jimmy Carter. And so, those places have been hit. I mean, you look at Main Street, Maine, or Main Street, Vermont, and it's quite nice, but you go off Main Street, and they tend to be not too different from the rural South. A lot of substance issues, a lot of poverty. There's just not a lot of opportunity up there, unfortunately. I know that they are relatively safer from what I've heard, but expensive, limited job opportunities. And those two alone would do it for me, just because, if I'm in the States, I want to go wherever I can maximize my income. Part of me has even thought, if I and when I go back, moving to a place like North Dakota, working in oil and gas, and just doing something that's really well compensated, because at this point I don't really care how I spend my time in the States, as long as I'm maximizing my income to save and invest, and then take that currency somewhere else where it goes a lot farther. And I enjoy living, because I thought that living in California would make me happy. I'd always dreamed of living in California, and then when I lived out there, I realized California has its own set of problems, and the social life there is not so great, because people work so long, so many hours, then people just don't have the free time to socialize as much. Um, and it also attracts a lot of superficial people, a lot of shallow people. Um, Beautiful. The nature is beautiful in California, and there's a lot of great work opportunities, but it's yeah, I mean, it sucks. Like, not California sucks, but just it sucks that, it's not what it used to be. But yeah, van life, that's a possibility. Like, I'm not opposed to doing that. It's certainly a possibility, but at the same time, it's like, you know, there's I guess the challenge of van life for me is, if I'm working on a computer, how do I power the laptop? Um, the internet consistency would be fixable through like Starlink, right? So if I got like Starlink or something, maybe I could get solar panels, but it seems like it would get quite complex to to do it that way, rather than living in a junky apartment. Um, and San Francisco is good in that way as far as opportunities. There's still jobs out there, not as much in tech right now, but so many people have left the state that there's still demand for certain industries. But yeah, definitely not opposed to living in a van. I'd have to do a lot of research to figure out how I could best make it work. But I think it's taking off, and more people are doing that. I think parking could be an issue, just because there's a homelessness epidemic in California. THEC 11335 says, "Can you target remote US based jobs and stay living in Thailand?" Yeah, so that would be the ideal. There's a few challenges there, and it's not to say it's not doable, but one, everybody wants to do that, right? So a lot of people at this point have figured out, hey, living in America sucks. Great place to make money, terrible place to live. And so a lot of people want to live abroad. I even brought it up at my last employer. Hey, could I just like leave? And they were like, oh no, no, you can't do that. Because in my specific case with my team, my manager just didn't want that. Some other divisions, they were like, look, you can live 3 months abroad, and stay here 9 months because of tax reasons. Yeah, so it's exactly. Dream Thread, it says, in my experience, most remote jobs are domestic. It's harder to find international remote, and that's because of tax liability. So a lot of these companies, especially publicly traded companies, they don't want you to live outside of the US, because then it opens them up to tax obligations, and they don't want to be dealing with trying to figure out how to try to handle these tax obligations. And so they would rather you just stay in the US. Um, it's disappointing, right? But yeah, international remote typically, from my observation, comes with a major reduction in compensation. So if you were comfortable working like at a local rate, which would be much, much less, then it's doable. But for me, it's like you're kind of spinning the wheels. Like, yeah, you get to live abroad, but you're spending all your time at work, and you're not getting compensated for the same skill set you'd be much more heavily compensated for back in the States. So that's the kind of trade off there. Not to say it's not doable, but it's one of those things that everybody wants to do. And I think more and more companies are realizing people don't like living in the United States. And I mean, that's why they have to convince these people from really rough countries to come up there, places like Venezuela, because it's harder and harder to convince people to move to the United States from Europe or East Asia or other Western democracies. There's some, but there's not as many as you'd think. And I think that's why there's this border crisis, is that you have to make the offer to people who are really hard up. Um, what are your thoughts on life in Europe? Do you think it has similar issues as living in the US? Yeah, and I think the challenge with Europe is that it's it's kind of similar to other countries outside the States, and I specify for tech, right? Because I worked in tech back in the States, but don't make as much money, and your cost of living, while it is less, it's not that much less. So let's say I can make 100K a year in California and spend 30K a year. Well, in London, I might make 50K a year and spend like 30K a year. So the delta between your income versus your expenses is optimum in the US. I think the quality of life overall is better in Europe. Like, you don't have to have a car in much of Europe. You've got public health services, you've got resources, you've got in some cases better weather. Like Southern Europe has wonderful weather, but I noticed a lot of European digital nomad types as well, and I think it's just an issue throughout the Western world, including Australia, including UK, including the United States, and especially including Canada. I mean, I've heard Canada has just gone in the toilet, and a lot of Canadian people want to leave, and it's not what it used to be. So, yeah, I think the Western world in general is going through a rough time, and that we'll see more and more in the future. People that can afford to leave, they will pick up and leave. Not everybody, but it's going to be more and more popular. Um, because I think people are starting to realize you kind of have to just save yourself. Like I moved to California uh, 7 years ago because the compensation is so much higher for tech jobs. And well, at the time, now it's going through a little bit of a rough spot. California is kind of a boom and a bust economy, but yeah, it's just yeah. I mean, Europe. If you were financially independent, I think Europe would be great, right? If you could live in a country like Italy or Spain, like I really really like Spain. Have you ever visited China? No, I've had layovers in Xiamen and Shenzhen. I've done business with people in China. I used to sell a lot online and I'd procure my products from Chinese manufacturers. But the visa for China back then, it was like you had to buy a 10-year visa for $300. And I was like, do I really want to spend $300 to go to China for a week? It just doesn't seem like that great of a value proposition. Um, and back then, I didn't know as much about China as I do now. Back then, I had a lot more fear mongering in my life, and ooh, don't go there. Ooh, it's spooky. That kind of attitude you have in the U.S. that people are programmed to believe all this crap from the media. I'd be happy to go in the future. I definitely foresee myself going to China at some point in my life. It's not an immediate priority. But yeah, I mean, part of me has thought about trying to get into English teaching, but I've heard English teaching in China has gone down. Like it's just not as viable these days. I've heard of people doing well over there though, and like, working hard and then saving up money and doing trips to Southeast Asia. Like, hey, I work in English. I work in China, teaching English, and 11 months a year, and then 1 month a year, I go down to Thailand or Philippines or Vietnam or Cambodia. I think there's less of that right now, but it may come back. It may be something that's temporary, and it may be possible that China offers great opportunity. I know Sabbatical. He lived in Shanghai for I think a few years, but that was a while back. I think that it's different right now. I need to do more research. It can always change. Things can always change, and opportunities can improve. Yeah, I'm not opposed to going to China. Dream thread, are you thinking about moving back to the US? So I'm not unless I get a job back in the States. Like I've got a decent runway as far as money. I could live here in Southeast Asia without even sweating for probably several more years. Um, but the more time I spend here spending my money down, that tax on time to the back end that I'll have to go and work and build my money back up. So it's like I want the shortest the shortest path toward um, living in Southeast Asia long term as possible. So now, of course, the time that I have now, on one end, it's higher quality time that I'll have in 5 or 6 years, right, or 10 years or 20 years, because I'm at peak condition or whatever, being 31. But on the other hand, going back and investing now gives me more time for that money to compound and grow. And so that's the trade-off I'm looking at. The only reason I'd go back before, a few years time span is just to make money. If I got some kind of opportunity, like if I interviewed and got an offer for 100K or so, which is what I was off. The offer was that I was talking to like last week. I didn't get that opportunity. I went on to the second round. I don't think I passed the second round, but that was for around 100K a year in California. And working that job for a year would have really helped to push me further along toward financial independence. That was with a real estate technology company in the sales department. But yeah, main reason to go back to America is a good job opportunity. Other than a good job opportunity, I don't really want to go back because I just don't feel that I have much there. I do have some good friends there. But besides my good friends, I don't have any family there. And I don't, it's just such a stressful and kind of rundown place now. I mean, you've probably seen videos of the big cities in America. They're dangerous, they're crime ridden. The people are just really frustrated because they were sold a bill of goods. And yeah, it's just a country in decline. I mean, is it going to collapse? I don't think it's going to collapse like in my lifetime. I think it's just going to go backwards to where it's not really remarkable, right? You see that, social mobility is a lot lower. So like, I just think the American dream doesn't exist anymore. And the only reason to go there is if you're in a desperate situation and need to make money, or if you're already there and you have an established career. You know, one thing I would consider going back for is if I got like a full ride to law school or something and, became a lawyer and helped expats. Like I actually talked to Dr. Lawai about that because I got my undergrad in pre law and I asked him about it. I was like, he's an American lawyer. He lives in Davao, but he's got a firm back in Nashville, my hometown. I was like, hey, what do you think about the idea of somebody going to law school and then uh, doing remote legal work, right? Like you're not going to make what you'd make back in the States, but that's one of those things where you have the credential or the license, you have some protections. Now, I think AI has the potential to impact the legal industry. Now, lawyers are a sneaky bunch and they or can be a sneaky bunch. And I doubt that they will give up that guild-based system very easily. I think that they like the amount of control that they have on society as a group, and they're not going to just give it up to AI very easily. I mean, they bill tons of money. I mean, you look at big law firms; they're billing $1,100-$1,200 an hour, and that amount of money is, you know, that's a lot of money to give up to technology or to software. I think lawyers will be amplified by software. I think some of the sharp lawyers will figure out a way to use AI to streamline their process or to make it more efficient. But yeah, that's a thought because I think, the reason I mentioned the legal field is one, I did my undergrad in pre-law, but two, I think you're going to see more and more guys wanting to marry women overseas. And there's going to be legal work associated with that, right? Many will want to bring their significant other to the States. Others will, some unfortunately, may not work out. They may need to get a divorce, but I think you're going to just see more and more need for lawyers with international focus to help all these guys who want to marry a woman overseas because it's becoming more and more commonplace. Well, like 2/3 of the guys in the US are young men in the US are single. And I don't think a lot of these guys are going to want to be single for the rest of their lives. That just seems like a lonely proposition. And most guys, that's the reason they work is they want to, they want to be able to support a family. They want to be able to provide for a significant other. They want to build a life. They don't want to just make money just for the sake of making money. And so I think that's where the need for attorneys that understand, right? Like lawyers that they understand what these guys are going through. They understand why these guys are going overseas. They have a vested interest in making it happen because, I mean, I've had great experiences dating overseas, and I know a lot of other men. A lot of other men have had positive experiences dating overseas as well, and it's just going to become more and more commonplace. I mean, my grandfather, he married a woman from Japan. This was 70 years ago, and what was looked at is like, I don't know how you describe it, like kind of maybe not risky is the word, but like outside of the boundaries of the norm or whatever is now looked at as like totally normal. If you're a young American man and you're like, I want to marry a woman from this other country, like people aren't going to be shocked. You may get some judgment from some bitter, resentful, angry people, but a large chunk of people are going to be like, that sounds good to me. So yeah, that's going to be a big part of it, is that there's just more and more acceptance of people living different kinds of lifestyles. And a lot of those people need support. So visa is $140 to China now. That's very reasonable. And, it's definitely worth considering. Like I said, not an immediate priority. I think next step for me is going to be Vietnam. And after that, I'm looking at the Philippines. But certainly China is a beautiful country. I have friends from China, and I've definitely met some interesting people from China online. But I've got to prioritize one country at a time. That's a downside of being a traveler, is that you can only be in one place at one time. And you'd like to be everywhere at once, but you have to pick and choose according to top priorities. And the Vietnam is a place I've never been before, so that'll be a new country I can add to uh, the list. And also some places I've been interested in for a while, like my grandfather served in Vietnam War. I've had a number of friends that have been to Vietnam that loved it, told me, hey man, you got to go. Like my buddy that introduced me to Thailand loves Vietnam. He's like, I don't, he's told me like he doesn't feel pressure to go back to Thailand. He lived here for a year and got a lot out of his experience. But he was like, nah, man, you got to go to Vietnam. Like if you like Thailand, you're going to enjoy Vietnam. How much are monthly expenses in US dollars in Thailand? Has there been inflation there since COVID? So I would say I spend around 1,200 per month here in Thailand, including visas, including like one-off costs, including stuff for my channel. Um, I undershot it, so I came over here with the expectation to spend 1,500 per month. I haven't felt like I needed to spend 1,500 per month. Some months are less, some months are more. Like months in Bangkok tend to be more expensive. Months in the smaller cities tend to be less expensive. My rent tends to be more here in Bangkok, and my food tends to be more expensive, and my transportation tends to be more expensive here in Bangkok. Does that mean everybody could live here on 1,200? I don't think so. I'm a fairly minimalistic guy. I don't do a lot of shopping. I don't eat at a lot of fancy restaurants. I don't need to take cabs because I know the city really well and I'm comfortable with the public transportation. I also have some Thai friends here in Bangkok that help me to moderate expenses because they can speak Thai. So if we go out, they can help negotiate transportation. Like if we're getting a tuk-tuk or, they know some good restaurants to suggest that are reasonably priced. And it helps to have Thai friends for sure. Could I live on less? Yeah, I think I could live on, if I had to be bare minimum about it, if I wanted to go below the 1,200 mark, I know some places on the outskirts of Bangkok. Wow. Yeah. So I know some places on the outskirts of Bangkok. I could rent an apartment, a studio apartment for $100 a month equivalent. And I could spend maybe 300 or 400 on food and maybe 100 or 200 on transportation. So I could get it down a lot lower, but that would be making sacrifices in terms of location. It would also be a much more Spartan lifestyle. I'd also, I might, I'd have to be more diligent about it. I'd have to be like very specific about the way I operate, and I'm comfortable at that point. I mean, there was months in Chiang Mai where I spent $700, 800, but I just don't like having to limit myself to that point. Like, right? I can do it, but at the same time, I don't have to. Um, if I go on and I don't find another job in the States for like 2 years, maybe I drop my expenses down a bit more. But I don't anticipate it taking that long. I think what's going to happen is by early next year, I suspect, this isn't financial advice, this isn't investing advice. I suspect they will start to drop interest rates because there's already so much damage to the US economy. You're seeing like rapid increase in homelessness. You're seeing consumer credit debt like through the roof. You're seeing people defaulting on their credit card debt. And that damage is cumulative, right? So if somebody loses their house and then they lose their job, it's like you can't just go back to the way it was a year prior. And I think that's going to continue to be an issue until they start to drop the interest rates and businesses feel comfortable investing. The technology sector is not worried about profitability as much. They can spend a little bit more on recruiting people. I know of a number of companies that have gotten rid of California staff and hired in cheaper countries or hired in cheaper parts of the US. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but I don't expect it getting to that point. And I just don't expect it to get to that point. And I don't have, and one thing that might help me as well is I have a small amount of student loan debt, around 4K, and I think Biden's talking about forgiving it. So that's why I haven't paid it off. I know some people will be triggered by that, but if he's going to pay it off, like I'm not going to pay it off. Like I'm going to let somebody else pay it off. But Yeah, I spend more than that on food alone here in the US. Yeah, I know that feeling. I mean, I've spent a grand a month on food in California just to eat healthy, eat salads, eat high quality meat. Um, you know, so I totally get it. Like my rent in California was more than what I can spend here. So it's and part of that too is just not having to drive around. Like in the US, you have to have a car. I think the majority of Americans have cars and they expect they're going to pay for oil changes, tire rotations, gasoline, of course. They've got a lot of maintenance and upkeep costs. It's not what gets me in the US is not only the cost of purchase, but also the cost of ownership. What does it cost to own and maintain this thing? Um, Yeah, 2,000 a month. Yeah, I mean, I could live on 2,000 here. Like I know I mentioned living on 1,200. 2,000 is totally doable. If I was looking at a 2,000 per month budget, which if I was more optimistic about the state of the economy, like if I assumed I was going to go back and get that 100K a year job next month, or let's say 2 or 3 months from now, 2K a month, what I would do in Bangkok, instead of renting this modest studio in a great location, I'd rent probably a nicer, newer studio and maybe a closer to public transportation. Here, I'm like 10-minute walk from BT or 8 minute walk from MRT, BTS, not MRT, but the BTS system. And I would probably eat like at nicer restaurants, a little bit nicer restaurants. I'd probably I'd probably take more cabs, but I just don't feel like I have to. Part of that is because I'm in a research phase where I'm trying to research my next destination. And so I could be going out every day right now in Bangkok and having fun and doing stuff, even on that lower budget, because I can have fun with very small amounts of money. But I don't like, I feel like my time right now is better off spent researching my next destination and then occasionally doing some applying for new roles. But yeah, it's just the insane cost of living in the US. Great place to make money, terrible place to um, moderate your expenses. Lex Vex, any advice for those looking for remote work in the tech field? Is the next best stable job in tech only AI related? Ironically, I think the AI field, of course, is getting a lot of investment. You're seeing a lot of capital flow into the artificial intelligence field. Of course, the NVIDIA stock, I made some money off of that. That has performed really well. Some other companies that are using AI or AI focused, Amazon, Google, Facebook, all have substantial investments in AI. I'm sure Netflix does as well, although it's not as readily apparent with Netflix. But there are companies that are not as impacted by the recession that still need tech folks. I would say like banks have been doing really well. Like setting aside the banks that have had issues, the big banks are doing well. There's other types of companies that they need talent that before they couldn't compete with the tech companies for the top talent because those tech companies are throwing massive compensation packages at people. But some of those employers are still doing well and still looking to hire talented people. Um, you you want a baseline skill set, right? Like you want some kind of skill set that is you want to get skills that are transferable from company to company. So you want to build with each role on your previous skill set and get better and better. I'm not as worried about AI like taking all the jobs. This is kind of a dark line of thinking, but if AI replaces a ton of people's jobs, you're going to have a lot of social unrest, and wealthy people tend to like a stable society because it's much easier to make money in a stable society. So if you have tons and tons of unemployed people that are going hungry, I mean, that's going to make it really hard for people to predictably make money. So they're going to have to do something to integrate AI technology in such a way that also creates new opportunities for people. And I point out too, like if you look at it, electricity, with the advent of electricity, that eliminated a bunch of jobs. There used to be a job where people would go and knock on windows to wake people up. You also had guys that would drive people around on carriages. So jobs have been replaced. There's new jobs that have replaced those jobs, like taxi drivers or alarm clocks, people who make alarm clocks. Alarm clocks is not a good analogy, by the way. That just went in reverse of the point I was trying to make. But yeah, I think that there's just going to be a necessity to create opportunities for people such that um, they can feed themselves, right? I mean, you don't want a ton of hungry people like with too much time on their hands. But AI is a good start. AI is not a bad start at all. I've applied to some AI sales jobs, selling AI software. Of course, right now with the industry recession, like those are going to be um, in demand. A lot of talented people have been laid off, and the people with the strongest resumes are the most likely to get picked up. Dream Thread says my rent in San Francisco is $2,000 for a studio. That's not a bad Dream Thread. Of course, I guess it depends on the size of the studio and if it's if it's convenient to your office. But yeah, that's not bad at all. I've definitely seen some crazy prices in San Francisco for rentals for real estate. Um, yeah, definitely seen a lot of crazy stuff. Some people have also suggested applying to city jobs, like jobs with the city of San Francisco. I don't know how viable those are. I know they're super in demand. I know everybody wants a city job in SF. Uh, that once you get in, most people don't leave because it's you got a pension and you've got what's the word, reasonable hours compared to working in private industry. You've got job security. Like you're probably not going to lose your job once you get it. But yeah, I mean, I still think there's opportunity for money to be made, definitely. And when the interest rates start to drop, that's when we'll start to see industry pick up. I'm hoping I can pick up a role before then, but that should be when these companies start to um, pick up hiring again. I know I spoke with a recruiter a few nights ago, and she said that there's a lot of startups that are hiring right now. Like I'm sure many in the AI space. I'm not quite at like a director or VP level of experience, so so I'm looking more for the like lower level roles that are more competitive, that do have more potential candidates. But yeah, Lex says, I gotcha. I ask because I'm thinking of going into cloud engineering, but with all of the recent layoffs in tech and AI blowing up, I'm not sure if cloud engineering is the best route. That's a great question. I don't know as much about cloud engineering. I know the last company I worked for is cloud-based. Um, if it's something that's interesting to you and it's really intriguing to you and you feel like it's something that you enjoy doing, I think you will learn transferable skills, because like a lot of companies would prefer to hire somebody else to host their data. So that's really the advantage of the cloud technology industry, is that a lot of these companies, they don't want to be responsible for all the hosting and the storage and the distribution. Cloud engineering almost could be thought about or conceptualized as like the data distribution business. So you think about like oil companies. Oil companies are not always necessarily the same companies that are in the pipeline business or in the gas station business. I think Chevron and Exxon are the two big ones that are vertically integrated, right? Where they pull the oil out of the ground, they distribute it to the gas stations. So that's kind of the way to think about cloud engineering. But yeah, the layoffs are disappointing. It is unfortunate that these companies are doing that. I really feel bad for the people with families, the people that are trying to support a family. I've seen it in a lot of sales groups online, because I was on the sales side, and a lot of sales reps are struggling that they've got a mortgage payment, they've got car payments. It's very easy to live above your means during the good economic times, and then when the times are not so good, to really be struggling because you made all these commitments financially that you can no longer keep up because the economy is not as good. So that's part of why I lived minimalistic in the Bay Area. Is I figure I know this is a boom and a bust town, and that I may be making six figures right now, but next year or a few years from now I might not be. And I'd rather stack this cash and invest as much as I can, max out my 401k, max out my IRA, and set aside cash because it might be lean times for a while. And I was right. As soon as they raised the interest rates and Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, I was on my way out the door a few months later. Sleeping elephant, sales, marketing, and HR, first to go in tech. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the companies are product driven, right? So they're most concerned about delivering a good product. And some of those roles can be consolidated. And, I have seen a number of companies that are overstaffed. I mean, uh, I'm not going to specify which company, but I've definitely seen where there was just too many people in these roles relative to what was needed. I mean, you saw this with Twitter, right? Like, I'm not a Twitter user, but Elon Musk came in and got rid of tons and tons of people. And I have mixed feelings about Elon Musk. I'm not here to congratulate him or to put him down, but we see that Twitter is still functioning on like a skeleton crew. Yeah, Nvidia is doing really well. Like Jensen Huang, the CEO, he went all in on AI. He invested really big in it, and it turned out to be a huge, huge payoff. It's hey, look, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, Nvidia is doing really well right now. I made some money, and then I sold out stupidly because I was like, what goes up's got to come down. I should have held. I made a lot of bad investing decisions, but I've learned a lot from my mistakes. Um, I think that they're really revolutionary, and they're providing another stage of growth in the economy. And uh, well, thanks so much. I really appreciate your subscription, light skin ting. Um, but yeah, it's oh wow. Oh, you sold. Okay. Well, that makes me feel better, sleeping elephant, because sometimes I kick myself. I got in around $100 a share, and I got out around um, 600 or 700. So I had at least another 50% or so over the price point that I sold at, where it's at now. But even so, it's, I think there's still opportunity moving forward. I think people will eventually pull capital out of NVIDIA and put it into other AI bets. I think also in the venture capital space, some of that NVIDIA money will flow into AI startups and companies that want to utilize NVIDIA's technology to build more nuanced technology. I think you're going to see a lot of changes in customer service because it's, as it stands, it's frustrating on both ends. I just had to deal with Amazon customer service yesterday, and they spent an hour of my time telling me things I already knew and giving me information I already had. So if there's a company that figures out customer service, they're going to do really well, because it's not a good experience on the customer end, and it's not a good experience on the representative end, because people just treat them terribly, don't respect them. I have a family member that they 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 take out their frustration on customer service reps, and some of these people deserve to just like shout in frustration at AI, because the AI doesn't care. I mean, you can be as rude as you want to AI. It's just figuring out, like, you know, it's just going to figure out that people are frustrated with it, but like it doesn't have the emotions that a customer service rep has. Plus, customer service is one of those things that doesn't scale. So for every hour you put into customer service, you get an hour out. This is different from programming. This is different from sales. With programming and with sales, the inputs are not tied to the output. So if you sell a really big deal, then it's a huge result. If you program a piece of technology that is super efficient, like you make some fintech app like Cash App, for example, that serves millions and millions of people, um, you put in X and the results were really big. Well, customer service, it's not like that. It's one to one. For every hour in, you get an hour out. Um, I have a buddy living in Bangkok right now. He's looking to return to the States. Was wondering, how often do you see this? He's been there for 2 years. I think it's common because one, a lot of younger guys, they just run low on funds. They come over with X amount of dollars and they spend that money down over the course of their trip. And they're not going to, many are not going to have the capability to earn what they'd earn back in the States. And so I think financial reasons for young guys is the biggest reason guys go back after spending an extended period in Southeast Asia. It's also somewhat of a risk if you push it too long, if you're not financially independent. So let's say you stay in Southeast Asia for 2 or 3 years, which may be me. You're going back and your experience is not necessarily relevant, right? Like my job experience won't be super up to date. I'd say also health issues can factor into that. Like some people may have some kind of health issue. Maybe the food doesn't agree with them. Maybe the weather doesn't agree with them. So yeah, I think it's common and it's nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing to feel bad about. It's just part of the experience. And I'm sure they learned a lot. Yeah. I mean, if you're teaching English is it's not a long-term strategy in terms of viability. I think it's great for a short time. Like you need to make money for 6 months or a year or something like that, but you're not going to make a career out of it. There are some guys that try, but what's the issue with that? Well, they get to an age where they can't really learn something new. Maybe they teach English for say 20 years and, they end up, they're 50 years old. Their skill set is not relevant to back home. Back home, unless you have like a bachelor's in English or a master's in English, then you're probably not going to be teaching English. And, they get frustrated because they may want to go back home. They may just miss back home, miss their friends and family, but they don't have relevant experience. They don't have much savings because you can't really save a lot on an English teacher's salary. Most English teachers aren't able to save any money. And they're just kind of living paycheck to paycheck, month to month. It's not really, I don't see it as a viable career. Is it a hustle? Is it a way to make some money in the short term? Sure. But living in Bangkok on $875 a month is just not a great lifestyle. And Thailand is probably the least optimal for teaching English because everybody wants to live in Thailand. And so they don't have to pay what some other countries might pay. And it's also not the cheapest country in Southeast Asia. So you're dealing with a place where there's tons of demand to work there. And schools can take their pick of potential workers, but also that it's fairly developed. And especially in Bangkok, Bangkok is very developed such that like there's a price that comes with living in a really developed city. There's a price that comes with having access to public transportation, access to healthy, clean food. Yeah. I mean, I think it's an in-between thing. I think it's something if you're in your 20s, maybe you're in your early to mid 30s and you want to go try living overseas, then I think teaching English can be great. I just think for most people, it's not going to be viable as a long-term career. And I think it's one of those spaces where AI is going to make headway. Right. That's another area similar to customer service where there's a lot of opportunity for disruption. And certainly robots can be programmed with the English language and it will be more cost effective. People will pay X amount for a monthly subscription fee to some kind of AI bot teacher, and then they'll get as much English as they want, as opposed to an English teacher where maybe they have to pay by the hour. And the wages for English teaching have been stagnant as well. Like I heard even in like place like Saudi Arabia, which is considered along with China to be two of the top places to go and make money as an English teacher. I've heard the wages for English teachers in Saudi have come down and that Saudi has become a more expensive country than it used to be. So The viability of it, I think, is just not there in the long term. I think that something with tech, tech will come back. It's not a permanent thing, that it's in a rough spot. And yeah, there's also the trades. I mean, trades are not something you can do in Southeast Asia, but for some, they're going to be in a position where they can make so much money in trades back in the States that they take that money and they invest it, and then they come over here to enjoy the fruits of that. And some would say, won't those be automated? I think those will actually be later to be automated. Those won't be the first to be automated because it's not as cost effective. The opportunities that are most on I think, in my opinion, are closer to be on the chopping block are the ones where it's a one-to-one, right? Customer service, where you put an hour in, you get an hour out. Two, opportunities where, like accounting is going to be one where you can program rules into it. I think the ones that'll be harder will be CPAs, right? If you're a certified public accountant, a lot of these guild-based jobs are going to legislate. They're going to hire lawyers and make it harder for people to use AI to eliminate those roles because, yeah, they don't want to give up their business. What country do you plan on going to next? I would like to go to Vietnam next. So Vietnam, we can pull this up. Yeah, so I'd like to go to Vietnam next, and I'm debating on if I want to go for 30 days or 90 days. There's two different visas that they have, and the 30-day visa is like $25. The 90-day visa is $50, and it's supposed to be awesome. Like it's not as far along in terms of development as Thailand. So Code is one of my subscribers I was talking to last night. He said, it's not as developed as Thailand, but there's still a lot to enjoy there. There's a lot to see. There's a lot of beauty in it. I remember being in Phnom Penh about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was definitely in a rapid stage of development and growth. It is now, but it was then as well. And it was exciting. It's like vibrant. You drive around the city, or you walk around the city. There's new buildings going up everywhere. A lot of companies have built manufacturing facilities in Vietnam. There's a big textile industry there. These were actually made in Vietnam, these AirPods. There's, I don't know if you can see it. It's probably hard to make out, but it says made in Vietnam, assembled in Vietnam. So these are actually a product of Vietnam, and that'll be kind of funny to take them back to where they were born. But Lex Vex, Vietnam videos coming soon. So I think that's going to be, let's see, 7 weeks out. So I'm shooting for mid-July to go to Vietnam, and so it'll probably be like late July when Vietnam videos start coming out. I need to do more stuff here in Bangkok. I've just felt, I don't know, kind of tired and run down the last week. I don't know if I've had COVID. A friend of mine tested positive. She's been kind of ill feeling this week. So I think COVID might be going around Bangkok right now. But yeah, I need to get back out there and start making more videos. It's been a little bit challenging for me to find some quiet corners in the city to film. It may be something where I need to just go out and record and then do the audio here in my apartment, and then edit the audio over the video that I'm showing. I want to do some stuff here in Bangkok, like, like a $10 challenge. Like, let's see what $10 buys me here in Bangkok. Like, try to see if I could do a $10 day, which is very, very doable. I could do a $10 day, no problem. That wouldn't be an issue at all. Like, it's a simple day, but there's just so much value for money here in Thailand. Like, to me, $10 day, I could already tell you $2 on lunch, $3 on dinner, maybe $3 on public transportation, and like $2 on dessert and like a smoothie or something like that. That's a $10 day. I'd be perfectly happy with that day. That's not the day I'd want to live every day, and it's not realistic to live that way every day. But certainly, it can be a very budget friendly city. Okay, yeah, thank you, Lex. I'm gonna make a note of that. $10, just because I think it would shock people. Like they're so used to in the U.S. paying through the nose for everything, and they're not accustomed to being able to go out and enjoy themselves for $10. I mean, what can you get in the US for $10? I'm trying to think, like in San Francisco, you can't even get really a burrito for that anymore. You probably spend about $12 for a burrito. And transportation, of course, is very expensive in the US. So, yeah, I think a lot of people would get a lot out of that because they'd see, wow, that's a decent meal for $2. Not the fanciest meal, right? Not Michelin experience, not a steak or anything like that. But certainly like chicken on rice or like some kind of like maybe shrimp or seafood on rice, um, mango smoothie. Like there's so many things because basically like the way I look at it is in the US, a lot of the products are priced at an international rate. So anytime you're buying anything in the US, not anything, but a fair amount of products are priced the way they are because people from around the world can bid on those products. Whereas in Thailand produces a ton of food domestically that the Thai market gets first dibs on. And unlike the US, right, the US allows anybody to go sell stuff there. That's part of how the financial system works, is that these other countries buy American debt, and in turn, they have the opportunity to sell their goods at a favorable exchange rate to Americans. But like in Thailand, I looked at importing some shirts because I really like these shirts that I buy in America, and the duties to import clothes to Thailand are like 100%. So the shirts were going to be like $40 and the import duties were going to be $40. Well, America doesn't have that. So yeah, that's part of what makes food so cheap here relative to the United States. I should say economical, is that they don't allow everybody to just come in and buy up all the food before the local people have a chance to buy the food. And that's wonderful, right? They're looking out for their people. Like that's what I love about Thailand is Thailand. They just look out for their people, and their people, you know, they're not struggling in the same ways that American people are struggling with, broadly speaking. But yeah, feel free to chime in with any questions or thoughts. Just enjoying my Friday night here in Bangkok. Kind of wondering if my laptop was made in Vietnam as well. I think Apple is doing a lot of manufacturing in Vietnam, and I think it's great. Like they're giving a lot of great opportunities, providing a lot of great opportunities for people to get good quality jobs. And there's this enthusiasm. Like I've talked to some people in Vietnam recently, and there's just this optimism about the future of industry there and the opportunities there. I even recently spoke with a Japanese lawyer living in Ho Chi Minh City, and he said, "Oh yeah, Japan's doing good business in Vietnam, and so I'm here to help out with the efforts of my company." And yeah, it just seems like a place on the up and up, like a place the economy is growing and people are optimistic, and there's going to be more and more opportunity there. Actually, Vietnam for English teaching seems to have the best pay to expense ratio right now, or one of the best pay to expense ratios, where you can make okay money, but your costs are modest there. Lex says, I'm from Chicago. Burrito and a drink can run 10 to 15 depending on where you go. So yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find it that, the burrito and the drink at that $10 included in that $10 price point. And definitely if you're taking like the MTA, like public transit, or you're getting in your car and driving down there, that pushes your cost up. Where I don't have a car here in Southeast Asia, so that really moderates my expenses because I'm able to take public transit, or occasionally if I need to go, like I needed to go to the hospital um, last fall, not an emergency, but I was kind of stressed out about it, even though it wasn't an emergency, and so I hired a cab to go over there. But that cumulatively is much cheaper than owning a car. Even flights within country or some shorter cross-border flights are more affordable. For me to fly to Vietnam is going to cost like $60 one way, where for me to fly to Mexico from the United States is easily $200, maybe more because the peso is doing so well right now. But it's just so expensive to travel because it's harder to distribute the cost among your fellow travelers. Where if you're riding on a bus, like there's the non-air conditioned bus here in Bangkok is like 25 cents for a one-way ride, where in San Francisco, the bus was like $2, maybe $2.25 for a one-way ride. And if you have a transfer, because the systems are kind of mishmashed, you might have to pay double that. I know for me to go from the East Bay to parts of San Francisco, I can spend $12 just for a one way, because I'll take one train system from the East Bay, and I can pull it up here. I'll take Berkeley over here where I lived downtown, and then I'll get on the Muni system. I'll have to transfer a different system to take it out to Ocean Beach, for example. So like here, we can show you. It should tell me oh, so if you take, that doesn't make any sense though, because BART doesn't go. That doesn't make any sense because you can't. Anyway, I could just be not putting it in right, but even at $8, if you're on a $10 budget, that's your budget, most of your $10 budget, you're not really getting a lot out of that $10. Where here in Bangkok, I mean, $10 is by no means a luxury budget. You can certainly make a day out of it. But we'll go back to pulling up Vietnam here. So I've been in Thailand for about a year. I got to Thailand last summer. I came to Bangkok 11 months ago. Well, 11 months and 1 week ago. I came here to 10 months and 3 weeks ago. I came here to Bangkok. I stayed in Victory Monument. So I stayed here, not at the monument, but at a building very close to here. Stayed there for a month. Then I went down to, and this is actually a great opportunity to share my experience in Thailand. Went down to Pattaya. I stayed in Pattaya for about a month and found that Pattaya wasn't really for me. Bangkok, like last summer, it was kind of overwhelming because when I was here last time, I was here 4 years ago, and this was at the start of COVID. And so the city emptied out and Bangkok was empty. You could get around easily. There was no crowds. You could just walk around, like no issues at all. Still, many of the restaurants were open. So it was like the perfect time to be in Bangkok as a tourist. But yeah, so spent the first month in Bangkok, came down to Pattaya, spent a month here in Jomtien. I was right off this road. Where? I'm not seeing, yeah, Tepperset. So I was like, I'm not seeing the condo building or the apartment building I stayed in, but stayed here for about a month. And then I was just sorting out my visa to stay here for a year. And then I came up to my favorite city in the world, Chiang Mai, and I was in Chiang Mai for 6 months. So I got to Chiang Mai in September of last year and stayed until early March. And by early March, the burning season was in full effect. And Chiang Mai was great. I stayed at the Trio building. I'm not here anymore, but the Trio building. And you have access to this like Chiang Mai University, the NKO Reservoir, beautiful place to go walking. I used to come here and go walking a lot. Oh yeah, well, this was a rainy day, but yeah, beautiful park here, like really nice space, especially when it cools off in the afternoon. Perfect place to enjoy sunset. They also have the Hui Kale Reservoir or the waterfall here. Really a beautiful place. And what else? If I wanted to go to the old city, I'd just hop on a. I started off a lot of mornings. I'd go to Maya Mall and I'd get a coffee, and then I'd come here to Gold's Gym. Where is it? Gym Hillside. Here we go. And I'd come and work out here and just show you all the gym. This was running about, because I paid for 6 months, about $27 a month. Those are the older prices. And you can see they've got like nice weights. They've got some cardio machines over there. And then I'd go back to my apartment and just like read, watch videos, work on making videos, trying to learn how to get this channel up and going. Sometimes, I'd meet my friend, like I have some friends that work around Niman, so I'd come down here and we'd have lunch. It's a nice city as far as walkability goes. Like maybe in some areas, even more so than Bangkok, because Bangkok does have a fair amount of walkable areas. It also traffic can be pretty busy, even compared to Chiang Mai. But like the old city, like you've got a ton of places that are walkable. There's a fruit market. This was a club I went to when I was here 6 years ago, Zoe and Yellow. It's a popular nightclub. Quite a few beautiful temples in Chiang Mai as well. Like this is one of my favorites. It's got the black and white motif. Such a beautiful. Also, is it down here? There was like a flower festival that I enjoyed. You've got over here, there's like a fruit. I think this is the fruit market. Maybe not. This is Chiang Mai Chinatown. It might have been Anusan Market here. I get a little bit mixed up because there's so many markets. I do want to go back over to the area that I was showing you before. So there's this, like across the street from Chiang Mai University, there's the Kad Nam Moor Market. And I would come here for dinner every night. They have all these different like stalls set up and the food is really good. There's like dozens of them here. You've got, there's like a kebab spot. There's some Japanese restaurants. There's some Thai restaurants. There's a smoothie vendor. I don't see a photo of him, but there's a smoothie vendor I'd always come to here. I get a smoothie every single day. Really nice market. What is your community experience? So that's a good question. I prefer to hang out with locals mostly. Like I try to find English speaking locals, and those are the people I get along with best because they have their local culture, but then they can also communicate well with me. With expats, like, I don't know, they're just kind of a mixed bag. And some of them can be really not very good. Like, okay, so as an example, this was in February. I was at Gold's Gym. So where is it? It's not popping up for me. I think we're further up here. Here we go. So I was here and I was working out. I was doing my workout. It was literally like in this room that you're looking at. And this older expat, and I'm not picking on him because of his age, just describing what happened. This younger expat comes and sits and starts using a piece of equipment this older expat had been using previously. Well, this older expat starts cursing him out and screaming. elf you and this and that, and you're so this and you're so that, and ended up going and getting the staff. It's the end of the world. He's using this piece of equipment, and so you see these guys that just act like nuts. And I don't know, like from what I could tell, he was making a big deal out of nothing. Like the gym equipment is fine if it takes you an extra 5 minutes to work out. Who cares? Like you're supposed to be retired. He was definitely the guy making the scene was definitely at retirement age. So I mostly only go for expats that I know through the internet. So if I've taken some time to vet them through online, like seeing their online presence, and I can gauge like what kind of what kind of attitude they have. Because to me, some expats are over here just to save money. It's only a cost of living factor as to why they are in Southeast Asia, and otherwise they wouldn't be here. And to me, it's not that at all. Like the cost of living is an advantage. It's not the only thing that I like about over here. To me, it's the icing on the cake. Like Lex was saying, temple architecture in Thailand is insane. Yeah, it's gorgeous. I mean, you're talking about like some of the most beautiful buildings in the world, some of those beautiful architecture in the world, some of the strongest culture in the world. Like when you were in Thailand, you're in Thailand. You're constantly reminded that this is Thailand, and the culture is extremely important to these people, and they deserve a lot of respect for being able to avoid colonization. Not to say that people who were colonized don't deserve respect, but that they've been able to preserve this culture over a really long time and maintain this tourism industry. Like Wat Phra Thad Doi Sutap, one of the most beautiful temples I've ever seen in the world. Just like those, the way that it shines, like the amount of people that it attracts, like tens and tens of thousands of people come here every single month, and you can see the city below from up here. I tried to hike up to it, and then I just gave up and caught a song tao. So I just hopped on a red truck and rode the rest of the way up, because last time I came up to Doi Sutap when I was in Chiang Mai 6 years ago, I rode a motorbike. So I actually rented a motorbike and followed my friend up the mountain, and it's a beautiful temple. It's just so like, I think the history here is 700 or 800 years old, something like that. And so you get this timeless feeling like it was here far before I came about, and it will be here far after my time up. And it's a humbling experience for sure. I've never been up here at night, so I don't, it's so beautiful. Like it looks like it's made out of gold. Can you hear me? Can everybody? Okay, great to see you, Lex. That's the mistake my friend made. He didn't put any effort to make any friends with locals and didn't try to learn beginner's Thai, which I've heard can get you ahead of many expats. Yeah, I think learning some basic Thai can really help you out a lot to connect with people. I can kind of understand some of what they're talking about when it's basic conversation, but it's a difficult language. To be fair to a lot of expats, Thai is very, very different from many languages. It's a tonal language. So typically in like English, for example, changing your tone, it doesn't change the meaning. Whereas in Thai, it does change the meaning. So you could say the same thing for different things. But yeah, the local are very, very friendly. It's not necessarily easy to make friends with local people, like in the sense that, well, it depends on the types of local people you want to meet. Like if you're the type of expat that's here just to party, like meeting local friends through the party scene may not net you I don't know how to explain it. Like I struggle to make friends in Pattaya, for example, because a lot of the local people, they're there to work in the tourism industry, not so much to make friends. I did connect with some of the older Thai people that came to Pattaya to work from other parts of the country, and not just in the the industry that Pattaya is notorious for, but also adjacent. Like people come to Pattaya from the north to work in restaurants, to work in normal massage shops. There's a lot of different economic opportunities in Pattaya. I met my friends through actually some of my Western friends that were living in Thailand 6 years ago. And then I branch out from there. So I asked those friends, hey, can you introduce me to some of your friends in Bangkok? And so they introduced me to their friends in Bangkok. I become friends with those people. They introduced me to their friends, and it spiders out from there. And so I think the hard part is making that first step where you meet somebody and you get to know somebody, and then asking them like politely, or like, hey, do you have any friends you could introduce me to? And now, like, some of the times when I go out in Bangkok, I go out with a couple of ladies. So it definitely makes me look like a ladies' man. We're just platonic friends, never been anything more than that with those two ladies, but they're sweet and they're fun, and they're actually interested in me sharing my experiences. And I feel that I have a lot to learn about Thailand from them. One thing that can be helpful, and as an English teacher, I could see why an English teacher wouldn't want to do this, but a lot of Thai people want to practice their English. So if you can sort of make the offer to them, hey, let's hang out, and I want you to teach me about Thailand. And in turn, I can help you practice some of your English. I can help you with your pronunciation. I can help you with talking about what life in the United States is like. I try to be neutral, although, of course, just by nature of my channel and lifestyle, it's obvious I'm not the most positive on America. I try not to be totally negative either. But some of my Thai friends, like, they're not necessarily as positive on America because they're seeing the news, they're hearing about the crime, and there's no Thai person that I've met that's like a pro-crime kind of person or whatever. Yeah, Lex, that expat did blow up over nothing. And you see some people that are just carrying this frustration from their past experiences in life, and they bottled it up, and they feel like coming over here was supposed to fix all of their problems, and it doesn't. Can it be helpful? Yeah, I think where you live is the most important decision a person can make, but it's not a cure-all. Like, if you're a unhappy person, like, happiness is a skill that people have to practice, and they need to practice it ideally before they come here, because then the experience here will be that much better. If they're happy coming into a place where people are happy, they're going to be that much better off. I admit I wasn't super happy when I came to Thailand last summer. I was stressed out and burnt out from my life in the US, from working in the tech industry. I was in a hurry all the time. I walked really fast because at work, you're constantly getting told to hurry up and do it perfect, and hurry up and do it perfect. And so you're bouncing back and forth with trying to do things right and trying to do things fast. And you don't have that here. Like, people are more tolerant and more warm. And it took me some time to come around to that. But I am much happier here, especially after a year over here. Just dealing with Thai people has had a way of mellowing me out. I feel very mellow compared to a year ago. I just enjoy the place so much, and I like it that some of the times when you smile at people here, if they're not thinking about something else, they'll smile back at you. And if you greet people, they'll greet you back. And I have that experience even in Bangkok a lot, where I make eye contact with somebody and they can be a little bit shy about their English, but then I'll crack a small joke, or if I see some Thai people laughing, I'll start laughing too. I'll even pretend like I know what they're laughing about, but I'm just in such a good mood that I'll laugh spontaneously with them, and they start laughing, and like we're sharing we're having this shared experience, and it's a life affirming experience for me, because in the West, I feel like unless you're doing something for somebody, or unless you can do something for somebody, you're invisible. Like, it's just kind of turned into a transactional culture or society. And you don't have that experience here in Thailand. At least I don't have that perception. Like, people are hustling. They are trying to work hard. You are going to have people like, hey man, you need a ride? Hey, you want to check out my restaurant? But it's not over the top. It's not aggressive. A lot of the times when I take them up on it, I'm happy. I'm like, oh man, it's so hot. I'm thrilled to just, be in some air conditioning. Or, man, I really, to be honest, I was getting hungry. I think I am going to try your restaurant. Like, even though I wasn't thinking about it, now that I smell your food, I think I'm going to have some of that. That smells really good. That looks really tasty. And I have those experiences all the time in Thailand, especially when I'm out exploring, because it's one of those countries where you could just go out exploring and you meet people and you have these encounters and situations. Um, but yeah, like I think it's just such a wonderful place, and I'll never get tired of it. I want to do something different, in part because I'm so comfortable here. I'm just so very comfortable in Thailand that I need to mix it up and introduce some healthy stress into my life. And yeah, but I'm always going to be happy to return in the future. I don't think this is Doi Tep, but it's a beautiful temple anyway. Have you seen cases like the one of my friend in your stand after 1 or 2 years? He had an English teaching contract for 2 years and just said that was it. Yeah, I mean, my buddy Jesse, he's back in Washington State, back in Seattle area where he's from. Great guy. He's the one that convinced me to come to Thailand. He stayed in Thailand for a year teaching English online, and then he went back. And I talked to him at the end of close to the end of his year, and he's like, "I'm Thailanded out. Like I've seen everything I wanted to see in Thailand. I've done everything I wanted to do in Thailand, and that's enough for me." So yeah, certainly some people will come over here and feel like, hey, a year is enough. I don't need to experience more of it. I got to see everything I wanted to see. I got to do everything I wanted to do, and happy with it, loved it. But I miss my home country. In his case, his folks are still around, and so part of it is like, hey, he's like, I want to go spend time with my folks back in Washington. And I can't do that if I'm in Thailand, right? It's a lot longer. It's a long flight. It's time consuming. It's expensive. It's, of course, international travel is always stressful. So there's plenty of people that this is like a gap year for them, or maybe a gap 2 years for them. They're going to do it because they're at an in-between space in their life. They have some time. They want to do something different, but they want to go back. In my case, the only reason to go back is to maximize earnings, because I don't really have family. Like my mom passed away when I was 8. My dad passed away when I was 10 years old. I'm not close to any of my other family. And so there's no real reason for me to go back other than to make money and to see friends. I do miss and care about my friends, and I prioritize seeing them when I'm back in the States, visiting with them. But friends don't equal family, in my opinion. Like friends are wonderful. Friends can function as family for you, but people are living their own lives, right? Like I don't like the idea of, hey, you know what? I would go travel the world, but friends. Like I like my friends. I love my friends, and they can travel with me to some extent, right? One, they can go with me. Two, they can go to the places that I like to go. Three, they can join on these streams, or they can, watch my videos that I put up on YouTube. And so, yeah, good stuff. Yeah, that's understandable from his point of view. My friend thought he'd be living there forever. He actually tried to convince me to go there. I'm more interested in Vietnam. I'm curious, light skin ting, what sticks out to you more about Vietnam over Thailand? Can you share a bit more about what you've heard or seen about Vietnam that is interesting to you? By the way, I think all these countries are wonderful. I don't think there is this one is best, this one is not. To me, they're different flavors of the same thing. Like they have some similar cultural similarities. Of course, the weather is similar. They have beaches, they have mountains, they have friendly people. You've got a lot of variety in country. It's, the whole region is awesome. I've also been to Cambodia, loved Cambodia. I feel like Cambodia is underrated. It's someplace I'd like to go back in the future. And if I hadn't been there and wasn't prioritizing Vietnam, I would definitely going back to Cambodia. I hope to go back there in the future. I think one of my friends that was living there for a while, I think he may have moved on. He was there for about 5 years, working in a bank there. But yeah, I think it's just a career thing. I think for a lot of people, one, they don't have here, or if they have a work permit, it's attached to their job. So they can't easily just switch jobs. And so it becomes like a career opportunity thing. Like it can be fairly limiting if you try to stay here long term in your working years, because one, the wages are not as high as the wages in the United States or Australia, Canada, UK. But two, if you don't speak the local language, like in the case of Thailand, that's also going to limit how far up you can go. It's there's kind of limited opportunities compared to your home country because of things like work permits, because the governments in these countries prioritize their own people. So basically, some of the rules, this isn't legal advice, by the way, for anybody, but one of the rules is that the jobs are reserved for local people only if the skill is hard to find in the local population. Is it something that they're going to be welcoming for foreigners to come in and do? But like, they just, I think they arrested somebody from Jordan that was working as a barber in, pull it up, I think he was in Phuket. Or Phuket. No, why I'm brain isn't wanting to participate today. Phuket. Okay, so yeah, he was working as like a barber in Phuket, and they arrested him. They were like, no, only Thai people can be barbers here. So that's the other side of it, is they're trying to protect these opportunities for their own people, which I totally respect. Good stuff. Yeah, that's but yeah, Light Skin Ting, feel free to share just more about Vietnam, because I'm still learning a lot about it. I'm still researching a lot about it. I've just begun to really dig into it. I've watched some videos over the course of the last year, but not as substantial as what I'm looking at now. And that's something I'm going to get on after this stream, is I need to just go ahead and grind through the visa application. The visa application is a little bit long and it's very detailed. You have to let them know the port of entry, the port of exit. You have to make a determination of the amount of time that you want to stay there. Do I want 30 days or 90 days? I need to find out, if I choose the 30-day visa, can I extend to 90 days if I decide to stay longer? Because I've never been there, so I don't know how much I'll enjoy it or not enjoy it. And so I don't know. It's like I want to dip my toes in the water, but if I like it, I also don't want to be on a hurry out. So that's kind of where I'm at with Vietnam right now. It is less chaotic, although the traffic seems more chaotic. I'm not much of a party guy in the expat community. I hear locals are more keen on making friends. Yeah, I've heard that too. And I actually had some Vietnamese friends back in the States, and got along well with them, enjoyed their company, and thought they were just really interesting and warm people. So I could see that, because in Thailand, you have mass tourism and you have so many foreigners coming through that it's really not that exciting for a local person to encounter a foreigner, especially in Bangkok or Pattaya or Chiang Mai. You've got millions of foreigners that come through every year. So how do they differentiate between you and any other foreigner? I had some of the most interesting interactions with in Hat Yai. So Hat Yai is probably the least visited by Western tourists in Thailand. It's down here near the Malaysia border, near Langkawi. And it's a cool city. Like, it's a beautiful city, but it's just not as well known among the Western tourists. So as far as like dating goes, it was definitely a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm not much of a party either. And I think that's part of the interest of Vietnam for me, is there are towns or cities in Thailand, Pattaya comes to mind, parts of Bangkok come to mind, that they're totally oriented around partying and giving people the time of their lives, right? Having like the absolute mind-blowing party with like great drinks and beautiful women. And I fully support that. Like, I think people need to come here and let loose and have a good time, de-stress, relax, but that's not for everybody all the time, right? And it's not necessarily something everybody wants to do for a long time either. Like, a lot of people come on holiday here, they come here, they enjoy it, they live it up for a few weeks, maybe a month, and then they go back to their home country and kind of resume their normal day-to-day life. But Vietnam, it not having that as much, like, certainly that could be intriguing, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it a lot. I'm hearing the government wants to push English since the return rate to Vietnam is very low. Yeah, I think it's like a 5% return rate, where Thailand, I think it's more like 60%. Most of the people that visit Thailand, like a majority of the people that visit Thailand love it so much that they want to come back again and again. Just the people are so friendly. The weather is really nice. Like the architecture is gorgeous. This is Hat Yai. You got this floating market here. I didn't make it up to this one because I heard it was pretty touristic. It's also kind of in a far north corner of the city. Oh, neat. Goes. But yeah, Hat Yai was a great decision. I went down to Hat Yai because of the burning season. So I flew from Chiang Mai to Hat Yai at the beginning of March. It was a great decision. Like it's got a lot of influence from Chinese immigrants. So you've got that. You've also got a large Muslim population. So it definitely has Malaysia vibes. Definitely has Malaysia vibes, which is cool because I love Malaysia. I'd like to go back there if I hadn't been there already. Oh, this is where I lived across the street from Prince of Songkhla University, and I'm here to this track and like go walking. I should have done more running, but it's a really nice university campus. City. I've completed my TEFL course. I lean more toward Vietnam because of teaching English. Yeah, I think that could be a great opportunity for you. I think you'd enjoy it. And about it, if things line up for you, like Ting, please, check. Let me know. Hey, I've made it over to Vietnam, because if we're there at the same time, it's a great opportunity to meet up and hear some stories. Maybe, I don't know if you're open ever to doing an interview, but anybody watching this, like if you want to meet up and chat, I think it'd be an interesting opportunity. Totally understand, no big deal, but always happy to connect with subscribers. Pushing English to help retain and attract tourism would help them a ton. Yeah, I think that's something that I struggled with when I came to Chiang Mai 6 years ago. Is I remember going up to, I think I was a woman in a coffee shop, and I tried to talk to her in English because this is my first time in Southeast Asia. I had been in Thailand for like a week, and I just go full force talking to her in English. And after a few sentences, she's like, "I'm sorry, I just can't understand you." It was so funny. I was so embarrassed. I'm like, of course, like I'm in Thailand right now. Of course she can't understand me. She speaks Thai. But English keeps improving year over year in Thailand. So I've been coming to Thailand like every other year now for 6 years. And every year I notice it just gets better and better, especially in Bangkok and Chiang Mai. More and more people have English. Their friends are learning English. I even have a Thai friend that teaches English in Chiang Mai. So he's ethnically Thai, grew up in Bangkok, but he's been exposed so much to Western culture. His girlfriend is from the United States that, he speaks great English. Like we can communicate, talk about anything. And I think that's just going to improve in time. But Vietnam, I think, is taking a tip from Thailand and like, oh, wow, if we have more English, there's a lot of people that are curious about it, about Vietnam, but they just don't know how to get around, right? So I had that experience in some more remote parts of Thailand where I walk in a restaurant, I have no idea what they're serving. It looks and smells great, but I just don't know what they're serving. And that's changed. But I think in Vietnam, you're going to have the same thing where people are like, that looks really cool. This place looks really cool. But I just don't, I don't know how to communicate in Vietnamese. Vietnamese is considered a very difficult language to learn. And so having that will really open up the doors for not only return people, but also new tourists. And they won't have to rely on the Translate app as much. Sleeping Elephant, when did burning season end? Heard it lasted longer than normal. Yeah, I think it lasted until like it seems like maybe 10 days ago. Like it seemed like it lasted until like mid-May. And I don't know, that was a little bit disappointing because I wanted to fly back up to Chiang Mai to finish out my trip up there. Like I said, it's one of my favorite cities, if not my favorite city in the world. But I tested burning season out a little bit. Like I was there until like maybe March 7th, and I just didn't feel it. Like I was coughing, not feeling very good. The visibility was poor. I remember going on top of my roof and looking out over the city, and it was hazy. And yeah, burning season was not for me. Some people doesn't bother them; they live there through the burning season, and it's a non-issue for them. But for me personally, if I were to live in Chiang Mai long term, assuming I had the proper visa, then I'd be leaving every probably last week of February, maybe even mid-February, and then come back 2 or 3 months later, like early to mid-May, because it's just not something that's for me. It's not something that I'm comfortable with. Now that I've given it a shot, I'm gonna grab some water. Now that I've given it a shot, I've recognized that it's the burning season is just not something that I'm open to. In your opinion, how much does the trade in Thailand have to do with the 50 to 60% return rate? There's no way to tell. Like, it's not something I participated in here in Thailand. When I went down to Pattaya, it definitely is very apparent in Pattaya. We can pull up Pattaya here. It's very much apparent in Pattaya. But there's, I think part of it is that I have a few feelings about this, and maybe you could call it apologetics, but one, it's not as stigmatized in Eastern cultures like it is in the West. There's certain, what's the word? There's certain observations of Christianity, or certain denominations of Christianity that look down upon enjoying that at all. And in Buddhist culture, they seem to be more tolerant and more open-minded about it. So people don't like, I'm not saying it's like, I'm not pro that, but just kind of explaining that it's not something that people, I personally don't think people should feel bad about it, assuming it's all consensual. There's so much harshness in the world that, like, love is not the worst thing that could happen. There's also, like, here in Pattaya, a lot of families, like I noticed when I was in Jomtien, a lot of families, there's like a water park here, for example. There's, where's the water park? It's somewhere down here. No, that's another hotel. There's a ton of Russian families here in Pattaya, or here in Jomtien. There's it's the most visited country in the world. And to me, Thailand has everything. So, like, for a lot of people, it's a combination of things. I definitely think that can be one thing. Like, if you go to Pattaya, you'll see there's a lot of people that are in Pattaya express. But there's also, you also have like shopping malls. You've got Terminal 21. You've got some great outlet malls in Pattaya, like, so great discount shopping. Some of the best prices for shoes I've seen in the country. You got Sanctuary of Truth. You've got like, well, this one channel, I'll throw the name down in the description, Greeny Travels. I don't get the impression that's what brought Greeny here. I could be wrong about that, but he's a channel that I'm a fan of. I don't get that vibe from him. But in Pattaya, you're like 2 hours away from Bangkok, so like you can hop on a bus and be in Bangkok in 2 hours. They also have, like, just north Pattaya here, they have some Japanese businesses in this city called, where is it? It's Sriracha. So we'll pull that up. This is also, I think this is where the famous sauce comes from. So this is an industrial city. Some of the best Japanese food in the country can be found here. And I didn't make it up here because it's hard to get to here unless you're riding a motorbike. It's just difficult to get to Sriracha. But yeah, beautiful, like, place. For me, the combination that I'm after in Thailand is the people. I love the people. They're so much fun. They're so warm. They're so kind. Two, the culture. The culture is interesting. It's very deep. There's a lot to learn and observe there. And then three, the food. Like Thai food is some of my favorite, and Thailand. You can't beat the Thai food in Thailand, right? Like it's some of the best food in the world. You have all kinds of different price points. So if economical Thai food, you can get that. Like street foods, have fine dining. You've got that here as well. Um, it's also very modern. I find Thailand to be more advanced than the United States, and then are safer in a lot of ways. It's the social what's the word I'm looking for? The social scene is better. Like people are smiling and laughing a lot more. It's yeah, it's a special country. I think I think there's a lot of different reasons, and I also say it depends. Like your where you go in Thailand will heavily impact your experience. So like that will be very much in your face, very much obvious. If you go to another spot that will be fairly obvious. If you go to Nana, let's see, where's Nana? Pull up Nana. Very much, what these districts are about. But you go to other places, then you'd have no idea about that stuff, right? So like I'm in Saton, this neighborhood. In the south of Saton, there's like mostly like once again combination of Muslim neighborhoods and Chinese neighborhoods. Toward the north of Saton, you've got these BTS stations, St. Louis BTS, Chongnon Si. There's also Surasak and Safan Taksin. And there's like shopping malls like Robinson. What else? There's over on this side of, we're getting into Sea now, but there's a Lumpini. So you're at the edge of Lumpini Park, largest park in Bangkok. You have, let's see if I'm curious if they have any pictures of monitor lizards. The monitor lizards, there we go. You have these guys that are kind of, they're not aggressive, but they don't like to be met you with their tail, and I've heard they can even bite. They definitely have signs in the park to not mess with the monitor lizards. They're part of the park. I saw them. I did see like a couple of Western tourists come up and try to like get shuffled away and jumped in the water. They look formidable than they are in my experience. Of course, I don't want to mess with them just because I just try to respect the wildlife here in Thailand. The monkeys that I ran into in Songkhla, those were not nice. Let's pull up Songkhla. So the far other end of the country. I came down here because I was in Hat Yai and I wanted to see what this was about. I don't know if so here this should show the monkeys. Where are the monkeys? Because when I was here, do they not have pictures of the monkeys? There are tons of monkeys that like run between the beach and this park, and they take your stuff and they demand fruit in return. But they're not friendly. Like they do not like me or any of the other people. They like show you their teeth, and this was it, Chalatat. I think it was Chalatat Beach. I'm still wondering. I'm looking for the monkeys. I'm not seeing the monkeys. Oh, here we go. That looks like one right there. Is it? No, that's just a rock. Okay, I thought that might be a monkey. That's crazy. They managed to omit the monkeys somehow. Maybe they're only there for part of the day or something. But it's a very Thai area. Like I don't think I saw any Western tourists in Songkhla. And What else? Is it Tongquan Hill? Maybe this. Still not seeing the monkeys. Well, if I find some photos, well, I guess you can see the signage there kind of shows them. But if I oh, here we go. This is what I'm talking about. So they make me kind of nervous because they just like they're aggressive. Like they're definitely not tame. They're definitely not pets. I did see some Thai people feeding them bananas and like there's a fruit vendor. There's several fruit vendors set up so you could buy fruit from the fruit vendors and then give them the monkeys. But if you don't want to do that, sometimes the monkeys will like take your glasses and then they'll make you give them fruit to get your glasses back. But they are neat to look at. Of course, you wouldn't see anything like this outside of the setting of a zoo where they're kept in captivity. So it's kind of cool to see them just like more free roam or free range. XYZ says, loving these weekly streams, making work bearable. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, XYZ Media. That really, really makes me feel great. And like, I appreciate you enjoying these streams and that they're providing value for you. And I hope your workday goes by fast and it's not too bad. The monkeys are wild over there. Yeah, the monkeys are just like, they are wild. They are so wild. Let's look at these. Yeah, like you'd think they would be friendly because they look kind of cuddly from their soft fur and they got the long tails, but no, they are definitely wild animals. But it was underrated. You know, it's this part of Thailand just did not see any tourists. It was about a 45-minute ride from Hat Yai. So I was here in Hat Yai, rode up here, got to explore around Boyang and the old town. And then when I rode back down, you drive by, there's like shrimp farms over here. That makes sense, seafood wholesaler. So this may be part of where some of the shrimp in Thailand is produced. This is a lake, Koy or Songkhla Lake, and there's actually like a tree house on Koh Yo that I wanted to stay in, but I didn't make it up there. But might be something to do next time. There's just so much to see and so many cool experiences to have here. Oh wow. But there is kind of this like land between the big bodies of water feeling here, because you see like the peninsula here is right on the edge of the Gulf of Thailand, right? You have the Gulf on the right, and then you have this big lake on the left, and it's just an interesting effect there. This is must be a temple, very beautiful. They've got deer. They look like the Nara deer. Now, there are some safety concerns in this part of Thailand. If you do come down to Hat Yai, I recommend keeping it to Hat Yai and Songkhla, like up here. I've heard there's some challenges in Patani and Narathiwat and Yala. So not necessarily a place you want to just go out and explore down here. There's just some challenges, I will say, down there. On the road from Hat Yai to Krabi, so I took a bus from Hat Yai to Krabi. There were several military personnel on the bus. It made me feel safer, but it's certainly, something to think about. And then I was in Krabi for about a month, and that was okay. Krabi is probably the most touristic part of Thailand I've been to. It's we can load up Krabi here. It's very popular among foreign tourists. Like my roommate was this guy who moved to Thailand from Japan. He came on a business visa, so he's got some business interests there. and really interesting guy. But yeah, Krabi, very touristic. Trying to get my sense about where. No, so I was over here. So that I think that's Krabi town. So I was more down here. You've got Ao Nang, which is like this beach. I enjoyed this night market. It's a huge night market and beautiful decorations, beautiful ladies. They really go all out on these decorations. It's just such a lively atmosphere. And the positive of being in such a tourist type of area is you've got a lot of English, right? Anywhere you've got a lot of tourists in Thailand, people definitely have more English and they're solid at communicating. They got the mochi. I'm a fan of the mochi for sure. Krabi is well known for this. Well, there's a few things, but I'll show you the Buddha temple. This is like one of the most epic Buddha temples I've seen in Thailand. And I wish they'd give a zoomed out picture, but yeah, you see that in the distance, right? So it's epic. There's like a dragon. It's got an amazing view from the top. It's definitely a trek to go up high there, but the view from it is really intense. It's just it's a dramatic landscape, even by Thailand standards. There we go. That's so you can get the full sense of it from the ground level all the way up to the top. I don't know how many stairs there are, but it was a workout. It was definitely a workout to go up there. And this is free. Like this, going to seeing a temple like this, totally free. Like there's the dragon. So this is the dragon that they have up there. And there you get a sense of the mountains, and it's just so gorgeous. It's so green and land. Here, like they have Riley Beach. So Riley Beach is very popular for tourists. It's like you take like a 10, 15, maybe 20-minute boat ride from Ao Nang, and they have these long tail boats that you ride, and it's just so beautiful. I didn't see the monkeys on Riley when I was there. These monkeys look tired. They've had probably a lot of fruit, a lot of fruit to eat. That market, we can go back to that market. The market's super nice. Oh, look at the monkey. But yeah, you probably have seen pictures. Like, if you ever looked at photos of Thailand, this is one of the most, I think, popular places that people show off. With the mangroves. Yeah, we can go back up here. The night market's really nice. Really convenient location. It's open like every night from 4 to 11. So it opens pretty late. Like a lot of markets I've been to in Thailand close around 10 p.m. So 11 is, really convenient. A lot of variety too. Like they have Muslim vendors, they have Chinese vendors, they have all kinds of variety there. They don't have Indian food vendors there too much. Like they have a couple, but they do have a lot of Indian restaurants in Ao Nang. I did miss out on this Portuguese restaurant. I wish I would have gone to it. There's a Portuguese restaurant somewhere around here. I can't think of the name, but I was just in Portugal last year and had such a great time and was kind of wanting to have a throwback to that. And then they've got these beaches. This is a national park. I did a stream here, but I think my signal was a little bit rough. But just kind of viewing this island. Yeah, it's just such a beautiful place. But what is everybody getting into this weekend? Any weekend plans? I'm gonna be going out. I may even go out after the stream if I depends on how quick I get through that Vietnam visa application. But I may go out and just like do some wandering because my sleep schedule has been a little bit off. I haven't been able to work out as much as I would have liked. And when I don't work out as much as I'd like in Thailand, I tend to stay awake later and later. I've read online it's something that happens in hot and humid places where I'll start going to sleep. I won't be able to sleep until like 3 or 4 a.m. And then I'll wake up at like noon, and that really throws off my schedule. It makes it a little bit hard to do some things in the mornings. I'd like to join Philippines Antics tomorrow morning. I'll throw their name of their channel down below. I'd like to be part of their stream in the morning, but if I wake up too late, I may miss it. I've been a guest on their channel in the past and enjoyed it a lot, but they are early risers over there. Plus, I think they're an hour ahead. So if they start at 8:30 a.m., that means they're getting started at 7:30 a.m. here. So they are quite early there. But yeah, Krabi, very touristic, but also very beautiful. Up here to Bangkok. Short flight. I want to say it was like an hour, 15 minutes, hour and a half to fly to Savanapum. And then I hopped on the MRT and rode into town. That's a reminder. I need to get over to the west side more. So I want to spend some more time exploring Tombari. I did get over last week to Icon Siam. That's where I filmed my video on narcissistic expats. This one of the newest and nicest shopping malls in Thailand. It's just gorgeous, like so artistic. And I don't know how they do it. Like I still have no idea how they do it, but it's an incredible sight to behold. They have a nice little Japanese grocery store in the bottom too, which I thought was a neat touch, and a great view of the river. I didn't see the river views last time I was at Icon Siam, but this time I made it a point. And you get such a cool view of the skyline. You can see here the King Power Mahana Khan building right here, tallest building in Bangkok. Has kind of like a Jenga look to it. And then you can see the Lebu Estate Tower here. And they don't have it in this picture, but there's the Saton Ghost Tower, which was modeled after the Lebu Estate Tower. It must be like, I don't know if it's behind it or if it's off to the right over here, but there's a great view of the skyline from Icon Siam. Hey, good to see you, Isaac. Welcome to the stream. Cookouts for you, first one of the year. That's something I miss so much about the U.S. is one of my favorite things that I do with my friends is get together and do cookouts and like campfires and cooking different things like sausages and different kinds of vegetables. And that's something I'll have to do depending on the time of year. Like when I go back to the States, I'm not sure what time it will be, what time of the year it will be. But if it's one of the warmer months, maybe like anywhere from April to October, I'm jealous of you, Lex. I'm jealous of you, Lex. I think you're gonna have a great time doing a cookout. And yeah, they do have barbecues like here in Thailand. That's something I haven't done as much. Typically, when I get together with my Thai friends, it seems like we're more often, we're going to a restaurant, which can be a great experience too. But there's something special about cooking your own food, and like there's something almost like primal about getting together with friends around a campfire. Maybe it's because it just doesn't get as cold here. The appeal of a campfire is not as much as back home, but that's just a really special feeling. I hope you have a wonderful time cooking out. But what are you up to, Isaac? Feel free to chime in We've got a half dozen folks here. Like anything you guys want to talk about, I'm definitely open to discussing. I'm just showing some stuff from Icon CM. I don't think they have a movie theater here. I think that's the one thing Icon CM doesn't have. But they have like H&M, big, big department store. Looks like the H&M is 3 stories. I don't know what this building is. I've been wondering because I see this building all the time and I've been wondering what it is. It might be a hotel, but I'm not certain about that. And this is a view of the Chao Phraya River, looking north. Havana Club, I think this one is looking north. Okay, so here we go. So this is the Saton Ghost Tower. It's the tallest building in the world, and my apartment is about a 30-minute walk from here. And it's off limits. They destroyed the first 2 levels of stairs. It's definitely not allowed. It's definitely not encouraged. Used to, you'd be able to pay the guards at the gate, and they'd let you in. It's definitely a trap, but I don't know. There's something super dystopian about it. That's the best way for me to put it. Is it's always got these gigantic iPhone ads on it for whatever reason. I guess Apple, is one to overlook the historical significance of this building. It is kind of a sad sight. It's a holdover from the Asian financial crisis. So it went bankrupt after they got I think they covered 80% of the construction costs with deposits, but then it went bankrupt. They couldn't get financing for it, and it got stuck in legal limbo. And it's been in legal limbo for almost 30 years now, and there's no signs of it coming out of legal limbo. It's it's a sore spot, I think, for a lot of people. It's a really unfortunate circumstance. It was supposed to look very similar to this. So this building right here is called the Lebo Estate Tower, probably the nicest hotel in Bangkok, or one of the nicest hotels in Bangkok. They also have a 2-star Michelin restaurant here called Mezzaluna. Runs about 8,000 baht for a dinner there. So really a primo space. And I think the Saton Ghost Tower was supposed to be complimentary. But yeah, it's just such a dichotomy, right? Because you see here the nicest tower, potentially the nicest hotel in the city. And it's like, a kilometer away from this relic. It's I think the original name was the Saton Unique Tower, but a lot of people call it the Ghost Tower because it's supposed to be haunted. There have been some tragedies there, unfortunately. Um, but you have this beautiful river access. That's something I need to do probably tomorrow. I'm going to hop on one of these river canal boats, or I guess it's not a canal boat, it's just a river boat, and ride it just to see where it takes me. That's something that, if you're not sure what to do in Bangkok, you have some time, just like hopping on public transportation and just going with the flow and seeing where it takes you. Have some money for a cab to get back if you're struggling a little bit with how to retrace your steps. But there's just so much to see in this city. It's a living and breathing city, and it's such a vibrant place, and it's still got that magical feeling for me. Like, I've spent a lot of time here, probably a total of 6 months now, and it just, I don't know, it doesn't get old to me. There are days where I need to take a breather because it can be overwhelming, and I just hang out at the hotel or at my condo. But just it's such a magical place. These are more shots of Icon CM. I didn't know they did a market at the ground level. That might be worth checking out. I might walk over there one night. I thought it was all up here and in the building, but that's nice. What else can I pull up that would be interesting? I kind of want to go back to Chinatown at some point. Chinatown is touristic, but they've got a lot of cool architecture and a lot of interesting little sois. I lived near Chinatown at the start of the pandemic, and it was it was really cool. Like it was really cool to experience it with very few people because it's normally packed with tourists, like totally packed with tourists. They celebrate Chinese New Year. Very cool. Dim sum. These look like some dim sum pots. Could be wrong about that because that looks like some grill marks or like a grill grate or something like at the bottom. But yeah, it's got, it reminds me a bit of what I've seen in Singapore, like some parts of the Singapore, like old school Singapore, that they haven't really changed much. Um, yeah, it's so much fun, Isaac. The outdoor markets, like being able to like live outside, is something that I love about over here. And at first, that was something that I mentioned I missed. Well, not at first came, but this trip, when I started this trip off in Thailand. Um, this is neat. This is a market. We can take a look at this one, where I was saying, what I miss from the West is being able to go to one place and get everything. But I didn't realize that was at the expense of having all these interesting individual vendors. And this can really provide a more unique and warm experience, right? Because you're interacting with a small business owner as opposed to like a faceless big box store. All these clothing vendors. Have you tried any of the odd street foods? The scorpion looks interesting. No, so I saw a scorpion on the ground in Hot Yai. So we can pull up Hot Yai again real quick because I want to show you. So this was not in a market. I lived over here. Uh, okay, that's not it. Okay, so I lived right here. So this is the building I stayed in. Um, Across the street from the university, and there's a market. I'm trying to get it to pull up. I can't think of the name of it. It's not going to pull up. There's like a market here, and I saw a black scorpion on the ground, like just walking along, and it looks creepy. I haven't tried any of that stuff because I'm not as adventurous. I'm a little bit what's the word? A little bit nervous about that kind of stuff. So yeah, not for me, but no judgment. If that's something that you're interested in, Lex, or maybe you have some friends that are a bit more adventurous, I think it's neat. I mean, not for me, but I think it kind of destigmatizes some of the maybe scared feelings that we have about atypical foods, because you'd never see that in the West at all. I've never seen anything like that being served in the United States. I wish they let me pull up a photo, because the Prince of Songkla University is really a beautiful campus. So here we could see the signage. Like that sign just is such a cool artistic design. This is a good picture of the university. But yeah, surrounded by these beautiful hills and then the lake there. Just so like future I don't know if the word's retro futuristic, but there's also like a cornfield here. I filmed some videos in, and I don't think it's going to pop up, but the agriculture department here has like a cornfield that they maintain. So I guess this is like when they're planting, and so this is pre corn. But yeah, this is where they plant all this corn for, I guess, for the students to study. Yeah, it's just not for me. It's not super appetizing. I also worry about my stomach having some kind of ill effect. And they're also not necessarily like cheap. Like I know that that's probably not the first thing that comes to mind when people look at bugs for sale for food. But uh, that's just not something I necessarily value a lot. I'd rather have like pork or some kind of like a chicken dish or maybe some beef or some veggie dish as well. And we can go from here because I'd like to show a bit more of Hat Yai just because I don't think it's as covered as much. There's the well, this spot we could start off with a dim sum. Fantastic. This is like probably the most popular dim sum spot. It's confusing because you order the dim sum across the street. It's a kind of a strange feeling. You order the dim sum over here. You tell them what you want, and then you go across the street and you sit down in their lobby. You sit down in here, and then they bring it across the street after they've cooked it, and they bring it to your table. Their aircon is awesome. This place was ice cold, frosty, super comfortable, like dining area, and that's kind of where I started off. But you can come over here to like this area. This is like, I guess, the fanciest hotel they have in Hat Yai, or one of them, Lee Gardens Plaza, probably the tallest building in Hat Yai, or one of the tallest buildings in Hat Yai. But um, yeah, I like the way that they all kind of like it. It almost has like a dome shape with the buildings as they gradually get higher. And I love that they lit up the building this way. Like, that's just so cool. That's so cool. I didn't go inside, so that's something I might need to do next time. They've got the train station here, which is neat to look at. It's a pretty big train station. I think you can ride the train from Hat Yai to Bangkok, and then Bangkok to Chiang Mai. So this is like this is probably the southernmost big city in Thailand, and Chiang Mai is the northernmost big city in Thailand. So it's kind of this almost anti Chiang Mai feel in a way. It's quite different. If Chiang Mai feels more like Myanmar or Laos, then Hat Yai feels more like Malaysia. And what else? What else can we show here? There's the clock tower. The clock tower is really a beautiful spot. I like the way it kind of is a North Star. You can use it to figure out where you're at in this part of Hat Yai, like the city center of Hat Yai. Oh, and I didn't show Central. So Central is the biggest mall in Hat Yai. Massive Central. Like Centrals tend to be pretty big anyway, but really nice spot. You can tell popular in the town for people to go and out. They've got a nice movie. The lobby for the movie theater is super nice. I didn't see anything I wanted to see as far as on the reel, but also a ton of great restaurants. I went and had some ramen here. In the basement they've got like McDonald's. They've got a bunch of halal stalls too. If you're a person who eats halal, then it's yeah, great. Of course, they got the ice cream shop, and it's nice air conditioned environment for during the day because Hat Yai. I was joking around they should change the name to Hat Yai, HOT Yai, just because it was really hot. But yeah, convenient place. Now I was looking around at some camera equipment. They didn't quite here at the East Center. They didn't yet have the Osmo Pocket 3, so that's something that hopefully Thailand will get more of in the coming months. It was maybe 4 or 5 months ago. They're easy to get a hold of in the but for some reason here, they've just been not quite so easy to get. Hey, Tony, good to see you. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing today, Tony? How's your day going? Just showing off Central Mall and High Eye. But yeah, what else can we show? There was a nice gym I worked out at. Let's see if we can find it. It's should be on Punakan Road. Well, I can't find it, but I will share this reservoir. I went to check it out, and it's a beautiful reservoir, but there was nobody there when I went. It's very different from the reservoir by Prince of Songkla University. And I don't know if he was a groundskeeper, but he had like 5 dogs with him. And all of a sudden, one by one, the dogs come running out and they all surround me and they're barking at me, and he comes and gets them. That was a stressful moment. They definitely did not like me, and I didn't have immediate access to like pick up a rock to kind of scare them away. But that's something to be cautious about. Is some areas you do have some aggressive dogs that you should be mindful of. I think Bangkok Pat got bit in like a random soy in a less well-traveled corner of Bangkok some months back, and had to get like a tetanus shot. So something to be aware of. But yeah, just part of it. I think this might have been one of them. But it's a nice place to work out. It's a nice, wow, that looks beautiful. When I went, I didn't see the fog. Maybe this looks like morning. It was taken in the morning. Man, what a beautiful view. And when I was walking from here back to, oh, that's so kind, Tony. I appreciate that. As my late grandmother would say with an Italian accent, that Alex, he is such a nice boy. That's really kind, Tony. I really appreciate you saying that. That's very, very nice. Lex Vex says, happy Friday. Yeah, happy Friday. Happy Friday. It's a good Friday. I feel very well rested. I've been definitely getting better sleep and feeling more energetic. And I've taken some time off this week to just kind of chill out, because I was going hard in Bangkok. I mean, I was out recording every day and trying to, make more videos and stuff, and get a lot of recording to be able to go back and cover some topics after I leave Thailand. I'm also trying to stock up on footage in the case that if I get a job back home at some point, that I can still record some content and discuss my experiences, even when I'm not over here, just because the editing is the most time-consuming part for me. So recording doesn't seem to take that long. Coming up with ideas is super fast for me, but editing is really the time-consuming thing for me. And so if I'm back home and I don't have much to do after work or on the weekends, then knocking out some content to help all of you, that would be wonderful. Kohang City. But yeah, that's Klong Rien Reservoir. And what else can I share from? Oh yeah, I can show you something else from Hai Ai. And after that, I'll get to your question, Tony. There's the municipal park. So this is probably one of the big highlights of the park. There's like a golf course. There's a golf course down here. So you walk by the golf driving range and you pass by that, and you get up here to the municipal park. And there's a lot of different trails you can walk around here. I tried to go to this restaurant, but it was closed whenever I walked by it. I was like, it's perfect. But you got a beautiful view of the city. They used to have a cable car. Well, they have the cable car, but it's closed right now. And wouldn't that be so epic to be able to take the cable car to the top, like, and just the beautiful views of the city from there, incredible. But for whatever reason, right now it's closed. I think it closed during COVID. But then you get to the top. So I walked all the way to the top, and you have the Brahma shrine, but there's a Buddha up there. I'm trying to find there's a huge Buddha up here. This might be, this is uh, one of the spots, but yeah, it's, looking for the big Buddha, let's see here, one sec. I'm gonna just pull up big, so I can think of the name. Okay, this is the tallest Buddha in southern Thailand. That's that's not it. Okay, we'll come back here. Hot Yai Municipal Park, because it brought me to Pattaya. That's strange. I'm not seeing it pop up for me here. Okay, here we go. This Buddha. Oh, it's so gorgeous. This is the tallest Buddha in southern Thailand, and it is a sight to behold. And you have a ton of, it's super nice. I guess that's the cable. So this is the cable car. If it's, hopefully they get it working. If some of you make it to Hat Yai at some point in the future, they get it working for your visit. And the dragon, that you like start the walk up the hill through the mouth of the dragon, and so it's just like a really interesting visual effect to be like, walking around the tongue of the dragon, and then it gets into this winding kind of path up, and you see the gorgeous Buddha at the top. And then the view over the city, and really a beautiful view. You can see the mountains in the distance, and you can see, like, you can spot a lot of the big buildings in Hat Yai as well. You can spot the university. Really a nice experience. Tony asks, how is your journey to fire going? So it's going okay, Tony. I'm treading water, maybe going a little bit backwards by being over here, but I also look at it like, who knows what the future beholds for me. It was a situation where, being laid off last summer, I wanted to just jump on this opportunity to come to Thailand. And yeah, it's, I'm glad I came. It might set me back a year as far as putting money away, but with the tech industry being the way it is, I didn't have tons of opportunities to make money, and it being so expensive in the States, I was thinking, well, the money I have is going to go a lot further over here, and I'll be able to see and do a lot of things that I've wanted to see and do in Thailand for a while. But, in the past, I've only been able to come to Thailand for like a month or two at a time. And this way I'll be able to really dig in deep and explore the country and see some stuff I never had time to see, like this temple in Hat Yai. Really incredible. But, Hat Yai is not super popular, like, or maybe not as well known among Western tourists. So like when I was there, it was just me and some Thai folks. And you also can see the mosque from there. So that was a neat experience to be able to see the mosque from the temple. Like, I didn't check out the mosque just because I think you have to be Muslim to be able to visit the mosque, but really a stunning building as well. And something I noticed, a lot of the Hat Yai fried chicken vendors are Muslim ladies. And that's something, or more Muslim men, that's something you have to have if you're a meat eater when you come to Hat Yai. Is the fried chicken in Hat Yai is fantastic. And they serve it with fried garlic, and they also serve it with rice. And so it's an interesting alternative from KFC. But yeah, just stunning, like just stunning background. Tony says, I thought the job market was good for tech jobs. So it was really good a couple of years ago. So what's happened, Tony, is that in the U.S. they've raised the interest rate. It's up to, I think it's at 5.5% right now, maybe 6%. And the result of that is that it's become much more expensive to borrow money. And so, as the interest rate goes up, the interest rate on loans goes up. And a lot of these tech companies, they rely on being able to borrow money for cheap to rapidly accelerate growth. And when you had the artificially low interest rates in 2021, 0%, then they could borrow like there was no tomorrow. And there wasn't to worry about in the world about profitability. They were just totally focused on growth. And so they hired and hired and hired. But now that the interest rate's up, then they have a lot of pressure from investors. Hey, you need to reach profitability, because if you're not profitable, you're not going to be able to borrow the money to grow to profitability. And so that's where a lot of the valuations were hit hard for the non-profitable tech companies. The tech companies that are already profitable have been doing well, like Facebook, their stock has been doing well. I own some Amazon and some Google stock. They've been doing well because they've been profitable for a while. But companies that like the company I worked for, I won't name them out of respect. No ill will toward them, just, don't want to disrespect them, but they're not profitable. And so they had to do a bunch of layoffs. And a lot of companies that are not profitable, like startups and smaller companies, have had to lay off people. So there's tons of people looking for work in the tech industry right now. Like when I'm applying to jobs, I'm seeing well over 100 applicants very quickly. Do you have any interest in tutoring English abroad? If the IT market dries up, that might be a backup plan. Well, that is an option. It can be kind of what's the word? In my thought process, a little bit like spinning the wheels. On one hand, I think English teaching will be impacted by AI. There's this English teaching platform, Cambly, and they're already offering AI English lessons. But on top of that, you can't save a lot of money. Now, it would stop me from spending as much, right? Like if I earned enough from teaching English to cover my expenses or the majority of my expenses, that would stop my burn rate, but it wouldn't necessarily push me further toward FIRE. So it's been on my mind. It might be something that I look into in Vietnam. It might be something to do for 3 to 6 months or something like that. The challenge is just, in Thailand, everybody wants to live in Thailand, and the cost is not as cheap as some other places. So it's pretty competitive. I would have the advantage because I have a bachelor's, that would help, but it's not something I feel confident in doing long term. And so I feel more comfortable about doing YouTube and trying to grow my YouTube channel. Now, of course, I'm not making much from my YouTube channel. It's still in its infancy. But there's a higher ceiling when it comes to YouTube. And I enjoy YouTube so much that even if I never made a dime from it, I'd still do it anyway because I like connecting with people. And to me, it's more fun and a hobby. With English teaching, I've done it in the past a little bit. And while it can be rewarding, it can be a bit more repetitive. Like with YouTube, I can go in all kinds of different directions, cover different topics. We have wonderful subscribers like you, Tony, that introduce new ideas and new subjects to discuss. But with teaching English, you're often kind of having I would say somewhat repetitive discussions at times, like what's your name, what's your job, what's your, what are you studying, that kind of thing over and over again. And it can just be a little bit too repetitive for my style. Like no judgment against it. I'm definitely not above doing it, but I don't know if it's something I could do for the long term. Where with YouTube or with tech sales, like I feel confident that I could do them for a long time until I hit that financial independence number. Um, so yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. Not opposed to doing it, not necessarily convinced that it's something I could do in the long term. What else in Hot Yai? Is there anything else that comes to mind in Hot Yai? See, we could go. I think that's most of what I wanted to cover in Hot Yai. There's, I mentioned Krabi. um, see what else. I guess we could come back to Bangkok and talk a bit more about Bangkok. I haven't made it down. I wanted to do this this week, but the time flew by this week. I really want to check this park out. It's just such a beautiful park. You can rent a bike here and ride it around over these beautiful paths and bridges. I did try durian, and I got an overly ripe durian, and woof, that was a strong smell. I want to check out. I can pull up this restaurant I want to try in Bangkok, La Mia. So it's like I think it's attached or down the street from um, Bangkok Hospital, but it's this Portuguese restaurant. So it's a Thai lady, and she does Portuguese food. So really interesting. Like I know I've been talking a lot about Portuguese a lot from and then what else? Because I've been my Thai friends to go check it out with me. I may be going to a cafe with them instead, but I did check out Samyan Midtown. So this is pronounced Midtown. Um, I checked this out last week, I think, and really another nice modern shopping mall. They've got a lot of nice places to eat here. The design, of course, is really cool to look at. Um, what else? What else? Um, in MBK. Uh, quite a couple places to go. That's where I got my battery replaced on my phone. I want to check out the Jim Thompson house. I've even with all the trips I've done to Bangkok, I don't think I've been to the Jim Thompson house. He was this he built like the largest silk business in the region, and um, let's see, it's kind of like old school Bangkok. Like he built this beautiful house, and then he just disappeared. And I don't, nobody knows what happened to him, but his house was turned into a museum. You can see these beautiful koi, the fish that they have there, really well maintained. Like they really put a lot of effort into maintaining this beautiful home. I remember your interview with a fellow living in Portugal. I thought it was good. Or it was good. I can't recall who that was, Tony. If you could remind me. Um, I can't remember. I can't remember who that was. You got all these artifacts, that Jim Thompson collected and has on display here. It's definitely one of those old school Bangkok um, spots. And to be fair, it ain't going anywhere. Like I see this house as being very historically significant in Thailand, and I think they'll maintain it. They've done a great job of maintaining a lot of historically significant spaces in Thailand, and this is among the most famous. I've got to get over there at some point. It's just easy to miss. Like I know that sounds strange, it being in the city center and being near the Siam area, but like it can be kind of overload being in this area, the Siam area, the Patum Maya, because you're surrounded by malls and skyscrapers and delicious food and the BTS stations. Um, Siam Square One. Have I've been in this one. I just haven't been there in a while. I've mostly in my recent mall trips in Bangkok, I focused on MBK. Um, Within the same room. Maybe I'm wrong. How many people have you interviewed? I've interviewed maybe a half dozen people or so. I'll go back and check because Portugal is really interesting to me, and it's you may be thinking of another interviewer, but a very, very wonderful country. I'm happy to pull up. In fact, why don't we just pull up Portugal, because I've definitely covered the malls quite a bit. I know some folks are probably getting tired of talking about the malls in Bangkok. So I was in Portugal last spring, and I landed here in Faro, and I liked it a lot. Now the Algarve is touristic, like in terms of Portugal. Like I still enjoyed it. I went in winter, so it was kind of slow, but it's so peaceful. Like if you're looking for a peaceful destination, I think of Portugal as being the most peaceful country I've ever been to. Like so quiet. I mean, so quiet. Even in this touristic area, very popular among tourists. You've got just low population density, not a lot of big buildings. Sounds like it's raining. Maybe a late night rainstorm here in Bangkok. You've got this marina there. I wish I could find it. We'll zoom in a bit here. I don't know if that's it. Pull up I don't think I saw this either. I'm trying to remember where I stayed. Maybe it was up here. I rented an Airbnb room in an apartment. So this is the Faro Marina and the beautiful sign. And this was in my video of Faro that I threw together. I recorded the video, but just never got around to editing it. But the tile work here is just stunning. It can be a little bit slippery in some areas, so it's so well worn because Faro is such a popular place for tourists. You can see you do want to be careful. It's a Mediterranean climate, and so it's not going to get a lot of rain, but I imagine there's like a rainy time of year you'll want to be cautious about. But the architecture is stunning. It's just such a beautiful place. I'm trying to, if I think of it, I'll mention it to you in the next stream. Please remind me up, because I'll go back through my videos and try to find that, because that's really got me thinking, because Portugal I was surprised. I didn't really have much expectation. My first exposure to Portugal was I met this math professor. He's Portuguese. He moved to, funny enough, he moved to Huntsville, Alabama. Isaac mentioned he's in Huntsville. It's raining in Huntsville. So this Portuguese guy moved with his mom to Alabama from Portugal, got his math degree, then went and got his math PhD. And now he's teaching in Japan, a guy named Artur, really into like techno music. But I met him and I asked him like, oh, where are you from? Not like in a rude way, but we were just talking about like our backgrounds. He's like, oh, I'm from this country called Portugal. And I'm like, I've never heard of Portugal at this point. Like, where is Portugal? Like, what is that? And he told me about Portugal, it being this small country, like on the Iberian Peninsula, next door to Spain. And it feels like an island in a weird way. Portugal, even though it's not an island, it feels like an island to some extent. It's definitely not Spain, but on two sides you've got water, right? So you've got water on the west coast, you've got water to the south. And then on the north and to the east, you've got Spain. So it's very distinct. It feels much more distinct than I thought it would. And when I crossed into Spain, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is very different. Now, I was in the Algarve, so I focused down here. I did not make it up to Lisbon or to Porto. So next time I go to Portugal, I want to go to Porto really bad. It's super high on my list because I love the Algarve, and I think Porto will be maybe a tad less touristy than the Algarve. Still touristic because Portugal is super popular, but it's more of a city vibe. We can take a look at some of these photos of Porto. Porto is not as popular as Lisbon because I think in the winter it's colder, it's rainier, it's not quite as large of a city. If you're familiar with port wine, then it's this is kind of the home of port wine. These I'm trying to find some of these. So you see these buildings. Apparently, in the cellars, they have a lot of cellars and big barrels of this port wine. It's a sweet wine. It's like kind of dessert wine, something you'd have after dinner. But I'm not a big wine guy. But when I was in Spain, like I did have a few glasses because I'm like, okay, when am I going to get a chance to try, the wine at the source? And so it was a nice exception. It's just so stunning. Like Porto is known for this bridge and for the I don't know, you wouldn't really call it terraced, but an elevation there in the I think it's called the Douro Valley. But yeah, so funny enough, Isaac, I'm actually from Nashville, so I've definitely driven through Huntsville, and my one of my long-term ex-girlfriends, she was from a suburb of Huntsville, I'll say, and never, always drove through there just because I feel like back in the U.S. we're always in such a rush, but it seems like a nice small town, and it's got like a nice vibe there. And then from what I'm hearing, like it's popular. Uh, a lot of people like to come to Matosinhos. Matosinhos. I struggle a little bit with Portuguese pronunciation, but this is like I don't know if you call it the first ring suburb of Porto, but you've got the beach and you've got like this. I don't know if we call that a castle or a fort, but it's a really interesting vibe. And I didn't realize they had cruise ships up here, but yeah, I guess they get cruise ships here. And I love I guess this would be a cave. Looks like a kind of a cave. Maybe that's just the way that the flora is sculpted. But yeah, Portugal is a beautiful country. It's just got the challenge of um, a lot of Portuguese go abroad just because the wages are uh, limited in Portugal compared to like Spain or places like it's popular for Portuguese to work in France or to work in the UK or work in Germany. From what I'm hearing in our tour, he works in Japan. So yeah, it's tough. Like it's some of the best places to live are some of the more challenging places to make money. And then I think it's Via Nova de Gaia. I don't know exactly where it is in relation to. Oh, here it is. So it's south. So this would be South Porto, basically. You've got the barrels. These are the barrels I was talking about. And then you got the Douro here. I guess that's how they transport them up and down the river. Um, maybe some of the wine is produced in the hills, and then they transport it down the river on these boats. But yeah, I love the colors and the landscape. And it's an art, like it's a super artistic place too, more so than maybe I imagined. Like, but yeah, we'll probably wind down the next 10, 15 minutes or so as my voice is starting to go a bit. I really enjoy everybody joining today and everybody that's participated in the stream, and it wouldn't be possible without all of you. Feel free to chime in with any thoughts or questions or anything you want me to cover or talk about. We're getting close to midnight here in Bangkok, so it's definitely getting late in the evening. Yeah, Portugal is high on the list to go back to. I will say Greece over Portugal, Greece and Italy, because I have places and I've been wanting to go to both for a while now. And Greece is supposed to be one of the top places in the world for people to go, like right behind Thailand. A lot of people seem to really enjoy Greece. I know Walter's World recently put out a video on Athens that I watched when I was strolling through Bangkok. I actually have a buddy who lived in Greece for a while. So he's Greek American, but I just wanted to break from America. And so he went over there and lived there for maybe a year or two, and he really enjoyed it. I think he ended up coming back to America to work. But it's, yeah, like really, really a beautiful city. It's supposed to be super underrated. And I think JP and Amelia went to Greece as well on their trip of this part of Europe. They ended up in Albania, spending time in Tirana and Buras. They also visited. At some point, though, I do want to do like maybe, I don't know if it'll be this time because I'm focusing on Southeast Asia on this trip, but at some point I want to do a trip and do Greece, Albania, North Macedonia, Bulgaria, and Turkey, like these five in one trip. So that might be an extended trip. Like it'll probably take me a few months to do it, but I think that would be really interesting. But yeah, feel free, guys, to toss up any last thoughts or questions or comments. Anything you guys want to talk about or cover before I wrap up. Just because my voice is definitely starting to go and could use some rest. My coworker went to Istanbul last year, and he enjoyed it a lot. I think he went with his wife for a couple of weeks. He was mostly in Istanbul. You can look at some photos of Istanbul. I think this is the Blue Mosque. What else? We just so this is the Grand Mosque. Oh, and on the water like that too is just incredible. I happen to love Turkish food as well. As you can tell, I'm a guy who travels for food, and that's something that I want to try out for sure. But yeah, if that, I'm sure a lot of you guys are tired, and you guys have some weekend plans to enjoy. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I think we're going to wrap it up here. But yeah, always great to see you and interact with all of you. I greatly appreciate your support and your time. And hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you soon.